Kaneki is the newest killer added to Dead by Daylight, and it wouldn't be a new killer release without the community being split 1 week in saying if he's overpowered or not. A lot of people are saying that he feels way too overtuned and that he's too easy to play for how strong he is, with his insane mobility and the second easiest injury in the game, better than Legions in my opinion, but not as good as Plagues. So what is it that makes Kaneki an insanely strong killer that is making the community demand nerfs? I feel like there are definitely some things that can be tweaked to make him feel more fair and fun for both sides, so let's start with his power. Kaneki's power is his Kagune Leap, which is basically just a grappling hook, and while leaping around he can lunge onto survivors, injuring them and putting them into deep wound while applying a Kagune mark, which literally doesn't do anything. This red circle on their portrait, it doesn't do anything, you can forget about it. However, while a mark is active, Kaneki becomes enraged, making his power recharge quicker, have a third dash, and vault quicker with a survivor grabbed. However, like Blight, he cannot injure with his power unless it's after the first dash, meaning spacing is crucial on this killer and he cannot down with his power at all. So where is the issue here? Well, first off is his injure requirement. It is incredibly easy to do due to the leap's massive range, and that when you want to injure someone, it is a long range grab that stuns the survivor, meaning that as long as you look at the person and click on them, you'll land the hit. So it's not a skill shot like Wesker where you need to line up and position properly. No, you look at a survivor, you click on them, they get injured. This is one of the issues because the speed and range at which Kaneki moves is insane. His speed is comparable to Blight's speed. This does, however, come at the cost of not being able to down with his power, much like Legion. The injury can also be hit over windows, pallets, and over some object and loops. It's roughly about the size of a pallet or more, which means that in most loops, even being on the other side of the loop means that he can still grab and injure you. This is why he's definitely the second best in the game at getting an injury, and the only other killer I'd say that's better than him is the Plague, due to her being able to infect generators and objects, forcing survivors to become infected if they want to play the game, or unhooking other survivors makes them become infected and injured. The main issue here is just that he can suddenly appear on you with his insane speed, stun lock you into the grab, and injure you with little to no counterplay. At least with Legion, you can hear him coming and have a standoff at pallets to bait the stun, or try and predict when he's gonna lunge or make him whiff his attack, but with Kaneki, you can't do any of that really. Even if you drop the pallet, he can still grab you over it and injure you. Though I will say it's not completely impossible to play around this power. Since his power is entirely map dependent since he needs things to grapple off of, it does mean that on some maps it's almost impossible or incredibly hard to play on for Kaneki. Since he requires line of sight on you, loops and tiles with high walls means that he can't grab you if he can't see you, or if you crouch and hide behind an object in the loop, it also means that you can't be grabbed. However, I still must admit that 9 out of 10 times you will be getting hit. You need to play basically perfectly hiding behind a pallet or a window, something, so that he can't grab you. So if he can't down with his power, why is he such a problem? Legion is a C tier killer who also can't down with their power, can move incredibly fast, and gain lots of info with Feral Frenzy. Well, the other half of his power is arguably stronger than his attack. See, Kaneki's leap is incredibly fast and allows him to move and reposition incredibly quickly. After you finish grabbing someone and injure them, typically you can just use your leaps to quickly catch back up to them and get the down. Compared to, again, Legion's Feral Frenzy, where after you hit someone with Feral Frenzy, you never really want to use it again in the chase due to the massive slowdown when you cancel it. However, for Kaneki, he has a huge advantage to his that basically makes canceling it not a punishment at all. That being that when he dashes, he slides around, and it carries a lot of momentum. During these slides, he can cancel his power, which makes it so that by the time he can swing again and down the survivor, they've barely made any distance. Whereas canceling with Legion is about 2 or 3 seconds where you stand basically entirely still. But with Kaneki, as soon as you land and you're still sliding, you can cancel, and they only get about a second of distance compared to Legion where they basically get to run away for free. You could also just use the slide to dash into the pallet or window and stand in the way, blocking it and making it so that they can't use any resources or have to run into a dead zone. This leads to a lot of scenarios where you injure someone, then just Spider-Man swing in front of them before they can get anywhere with a window or pallet, and you just down them. Another issue with him is that he has been given the ability to go over pallets and windows quicker with his dashes. If you leap while looking at a survivor, you will go over the pallet basically instantly with little to no cooldown after vaulting over it. For Wesker, if you dash over a pallet, usually it's like 2 seconds before you can actually go back to full speed and swing. But for Kaneki, you move fast enough that you can hit survivors before they make it around the loop again. This makes him incredibly good at shutting down loops that are usually too big to mind game, since he can just vault over it and hit you before you make it around again. And, you know, where have I heard this mechanic before? You know, where you can just negate good pallets. I don't know when they've done this before. So now let's summarize it real quick. Kaneki has an incredibly easy requirement to injure someone, insane mobility around the map, can quickly catch up with survivors, and can negate some tiles with his vaults. Kaneki, in my opinion, also feels strong for another reason, and that's because he's another killer who values great map positioning and map knowledge. Like Blight, Billy, Oni, and Wesker, all killers who are fast and have incredibly high skill ceilings, who need to be positioned correctly in loops. You know, like a Billy has to sit in a certain position at Shack so that he can flick around, do a 180 curve or whatever, and down someone. Kaneki's like that too. The more you know about maps and know how to position yourself, the better he becomes. Kaneki is like the fusion of Wesker and Legion with a hint of Blight, gaining the quick injuries of Legion with the mobility of Wesker and Blight, which makes for an incredibly insane combo. Kaneki also has some really good add-ons too, like Yamori's Mask or the Centipede. I really hope I'm saying all these names right. Mask is one of the most overpowered add-ons we've seen in a long time. It's like stupidly busted. Whenever you hook a survivor while you're enraged, and you are enraged 90% of the match, because when a survivor cleanses their deep wound or goes down, there's a 45-second timer on it, or 60 seconds if you land the perfectly timed quick time event on it. So basically, you're just permanently enraged throughout the whole match. And whenever you hook a survivor while enraged, all the other survivors scream. And no one brings Calm of Spirit, so everyone screams. And there's no range requirement either, like on Barbecue and Chili, where they need to be a certain distance away. With the Mask, you hook someone and you just instantly know where everyone is. It's so overpowered. And then Centipede is just Bamboozle in add-on form, making it so that whenever you vault while you're enraged, and again, you're enraged the whole match, you block the window for 10 seconds. So it's just Bamboozle in add-on form. Not to mention, of course, Kaneki's insane speed of being able to vault over a window basically instantly. Overall, Kaneki does have a few problems balancing wise, the first of them being how insanely easy it is to injure someone. Like, the hitbox on it is way too big and kind of detrimental at times, where I won't even be looking at a survivor but still go for the grab. They did say on the dev stream that it was tested as a skill shot ability, but it didn't feel good and it felt clunky, so it will stay as this grab mechanic. I would personally like it, however, to be changed to have a smaller hitbox. There have been so many times where I wanted to leap onto an object, like say a tree next to them, or vault onto the ceiling while they're running by, and instead I grab onto the survivor. And you do not want to grab onto a survivor on your first dash or while they're already infected, because they have a massive penalty to grabbing them. See, if you grab a survivor who's already been infected with the Kagune mark, or that you're on your first leap, instead of being able to continue your lunge again or cancel or do anything like that, you are instead just stunned and hit with a massive slowdown where you stand still for basically like 2 or 3 seconds. And so if they reduce the size of the hitbox for grabs, it makes it easier for me to leap onto a tree next to them, slide into them, and then get the hit. But instead, the hitbox is so big that when I do want to hook onto the tree, instead I grab onto them and I'm stunned for 3 seconds basically. Another thing is potentially making it so that the range at which you actually injure them and grab them could be smaller, as I've had times where it feels like the survivor is a mile away, but I still get the grab and injure them, because the range on it is insanely big. I could see them making it so that there can't be an object in between the way unless it's a pallet or window or something, or you need to be directly on them, like a Wesker dash, so you can't just hit them over something. I could see them doing that potentially if that's the route they want to take with it, but the range at which you can grab onto them and actually get the injure is insanely big. I do feel like they are 100% going to nerf and reduce the vault speed bonus you get when you're enraged and grabbing onto a survivor to vault over a pallet or window, since in any tile or loop where there's a strong pallet or window, you can just brute force your way through it by looking at the survivor and grabbing them and going over the window, and you usually get the hit because you recover from it so fast that the survivor doesn't have enough time to make it around the loop, so then you just get the hit. And I feel like this is definitely going to be nerfed because we do not want another scamper situation. But now we get to arguably the most controversial change, and one I don't really agree with, that being his slowdown on canceling his power. Some people believe that you shouldn't be able to preemptively cancel his power in the air, like while you're sliding around, since it is a mini animation cancel, but rather you can only cancel after you've finally stopped your slide and your momentum. Personally, I feel like this would be a massive nerf overall and wouldn't just make him worse, but make him feel worse to play, and his mobility already feels great. We don't need to touch his mobility and his slide canceling and all that stuff. I feel like that's fine as is. I do personally feel like being able to slide and have the momentum carry wall canceling is definitely strong. It's very strong, but at the same time, removing it or making the cooldown longer would just make him not as fun to play. Personally, I feel like this is just another new player bias, because console players, and I think Epic, I'm not actually sure if Epic game platform people get to play the PTB, they didn't get to test him and see how he feels. So this is an entirely new field of, you know, the other 75% of the player base getting to play against him and learn what to do. We're all new at playing him and playing against him. In any game, whenever something new is added, the community will either go, whoa, this character is so overpowered, we need to nerf them ASAP, oh my god, so overpowered. Or then the alternative, where a character releases and they feel meh, but then the community says they're like, horrible, oh my god, this is the worst killer in the game, and then they get hyper buffed like what happened with Houndmaster. I personally don't think that we should be calling for any changes until like a month after release, and then we can see how the character actually plays, so we can learn what he can and can't do, and all that sort of stuff, because it's not really fair to judge him already 1 week in. I mean, it hasn't even been 2 weeks. People are barely learning. I don't even think anyone's P100'd him at the time of this recording. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised because the Blood Moon event just started today, but I mean, it's still very early to call for nerfs and changes, other than, say, the mask and a few other things I'll talk about in a second. Personally though, I would love it if they made the grab hitbox smaller so he can spider swing around easier. And no, he doesn't need to down with his power, otherwise he'd be a stronger nurse. Anyone who says that he should be able to down with his power is just insane. It would be like that one PTB patch with twins, where they could just chain downs in 3 seconds and end the game. It was way too strong. Overall, Kaneki is definitely a strong killer with an insanely high skill ceiling, and with most players having thousands and thousands of hours in this game, you know, you run into 4-man stacks of Swift with 5,000 hours each. A killer like this, where you need to know map tiles and where everything is, a killer like this who incentivizes learning all this, just means that naturally a lot of players are going to pick him up. And with how popular characters like Wesker and Blight are, it's going to be easier for them to learn this killer, which is why people are already doing some insane stuff with him. But I mean, let's be honest here. Kaneki may be strong, but he's no Spirit or Dracula, Blight, Billy Nurse. He's not at that level. He's close to it, he's very fast and strong, but he's not stupidly overpowered like those killers can be. So my final thoughts would be, nerf the size of the grab on the hitbox so it's easier to grab around people and it's not a gigantic circle that's like 20 meters around them, so you can actually miss and position yourself better. Maybe make the range at which you grab someone and can actually injure them smaller, so that it's barely over a pallet or something like that, instead of being able to do it from like 5 miles away. Nerf the mask add-on. That add-on definitely needs a nerf. And that's about what I'd change. I don't think much else really needs to be changed. I don't really have much else to say about him, besides I really love this killer and he's the most fun I've had in a while. So I hope you all take care of yourselves and have a damn good one. Peace.